I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared this very unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. So it's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans. The Colosseum, Michelangelo's, David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all super exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The flight attendant comes on and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean, Holland? I signed up to go to Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All of my life, I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place. It's just a little different. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks. Can I get an amen? You must learn a whole new language. And you'll meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, Holland has tulips, Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is very significant loss. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to go to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special place, the very special, lovely things about Holland. And this was called Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl, I think, Kingsley. Got that years ago after both our kids were diagnosed. I think it was in a newspaper editorial. My mom sent it to me, and I have shared it with so many special needs families, all the mamas I know. Even when we did a special needs group at our church, I shared it with our volunteers because I just don't think people get it. Not always because they don't want to, sometimes because they don't take the time to try to learn, but often because you can't get it till you're there.
Beautiful scenario to relate to for somebody who might not understand. Hi, welcome to Pages of Giving. This is my beautiful friend, Becky Richey.
Hello.
In our first video, you all met Hannah Richey, and this is Hannah's wonderful, wonderful mother. And today we're going to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be the parent of a special needs child, or in Becky's case, two of them, on complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
2 for 2, baby.
Two for two. So Becky, this we talked about this paper because you say you've used it for years. Tell us why it's important to you. Why?
Because sometimes when you share about the struggles, I've had this recently, someone will say, well, maybe you should think about the positive parts. And I guess the point is, I'm not complaining.
Right.
I'm just grieving still. And my kids are 24 and 25 because silly things, which aren't silly. We never will send a kid to college. My husband and I both played sports in high school, and my husband even in college, and our kids couldn't play competitive sports because they don't understand that team thing. So we never got to go watch our kids do any of that. We never got to go to award ceremonies. There's just so many things that were missed And one
Proms
thing,
and homecomings.
yeah, Hannah did go to proms and homecomings, but it was different. We had to make sure it was with the right people and that it would work for her. Jacob not. I mean, he could have. His teachers would have gone with him.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to. And that's what I have to remind myself. He doesn't feel like he missed it.
Right.
Hannah sometimes does, because she's super high functioning, and she will say, I just don't like having autism. I don't like that it's different. I don't like that, I can't drive or whatever it is. Jake doesn't know. Jake's a happy pill. Jake doesn't know about an election. Jake doesn't know about a war. Jake doesn't know about inflation. Jake doesn't know anything. As long as we have his Gatorade and chicken sandwiches, he's good to go. But, none of those worries that all the rest of us have. But it's just very, it is like everyone else is going on with their life. And I don't know if they're bragging, but it feels like it when you're the only one who's not doing that. Like things that are really hard is Christmas time. All the Christmas cards. My husband and I are in our 50s. So all our friends' kids are getting married and having babies. And, maybe Hannah will get married. I don't know. But we may never have a wedding or a baby shower or a bridal shower or be grandparents. So that is a loss. And it doesn't mean we don't love them, that we feel the loss.
Right.
I love them. And my husband always says, if I could give them a pill and make them not have autism, I wouldn't. And I get super offended by the whole cure autism now. Like they need to be cured. They're not sick. They're fearfully and wonderfully made.
Amen.
Just made a little different than other people,
Right.
the way they process it. And so I guess with as difficult a journey as it is, just when others are celebrating, it's difficult not to feel like it's rubbing your nose in it, even though that's not what it is.
Right.
They should absolutely, the Bible talks about weeping with those who weep and rejoicing with those who rejoice. And we rejoice with those who rejoice. But we'd like people to weep with us when we weep. And to realize what a loss it is. It didn't just quit being a loss because they're older now. We have to think long term. And I know we're going to talk about that later. But like our retirement planning isn't just about my husband and I.
Right.
It's where our kid's going to be. And when we're gone, who's going to look out for them? That kind of stuff keeps me up at night.
And you still are figuring that out, right?
Right.
So
Kind of just starting.
yeah, many parents that, probably feel really alone.
For sure.
In feeling the same way that you are.
It is super lonely.
I'm sure very hard to express.
Yeah, and it's isolating. You know what I mean? Partly because, we still have to get a babysitter. Jacob's 24. We don't call it a babysitter, we call it a caregiver, but that's what it is.
Right.
And he has epilepsy also, so, Hannah, we don't want Hannah to stay with him because he has severe seizures. And so, my husband and I often have to miss things because we have wonderful caregivers, but they're not available all the time. So, if something pops up spontaneously, there is no way we can go. I have my calendar planned months out when our caregivers are coming.
I know.
3 to 6 months at a time.
I know.
Because that's the only way it works.
I'm always telling Mike, I'm like, they're so patient with me. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. And Becky's trying to fill my calendar for 3 months from now. I can't do it.
That's because Hannah's asking me, are we doing this 3 months from now? And I'm a little OCD. But, that piece is difficult too. My husband and I just can't pop out to dinner without a kid. And Jake doesn't want to sit down and eat in a restaurant. And I think that's a big thing, Patty, too, is the judgment. I don't care. I used to care what people thought of me and be embarrassed. And my husband was like, forget that crap. We are taking him out and people are going to have to deal.
That's good.
I'm glad he made me because I was worried about what people think. And he's like, they're going to have to get over it because the kids are never going to learn to sit in a restaurant if we don't make them. And so many other parents who have kids, that are now adults or teenagers and can't sit at restaurants. And like, how do you do that? It's like, because we made them since they were 2. Because and it was awful. It was embarrassing. We got the looks. We had the tantrums. We had 2 of them running,
Right, but that's, I see it in stores. I see it everywhere to where those looks and those judgments come. And I think that's a message that we need to get out today. Like, just don't. Try to be helpful. Try to be understanding. Give a wink. Give a nod. I see you.
When we were in California.
Just give some encouragement.
For sure.
Not every, and we're talking, obviously, if you see an adult acting like that, then you know that there's a cognitive thing going on. But, people, that happens with children a lot. And you all don't even think before you speak about that child screaming in that shopping cart and that mom just having no choice but to shop anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I remember my girlfriend Christina out in California. We were there, and Hannah was younger and having a complete meltdown, and we're at their house. We went out for a wedding, and we stayed with them, or out for vacation, something. And she looked at me and said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And it's like, that's all she had to say. Like, I don't need you to give me a suggestion about how hard I should spank him, or what I should do, or he's going to have to learn sometime or something like that. Please just say, what can I do to help? Because you just don't know until you walk a mile. And I always say an hour in my shoe. Like, take them for an hour because you'll be bringing them back. Especially when they were little. And again, it's hard for me to say that because I feel like people misinterpret that we don't love them, and we love them dearly. We wouldn't change them. But that doesn't change the fact of how difficult it is and how isolating it is and how the loss of that dream, that the things you're never going to do. So being at weddings is hard.
Yes.
Like when we had infertility before Hannah, I couldn't do baby showers anymore because I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to do that. That's how our life is about a lot of things.
I remember how badly you wanted to go to that party of John's coworker. Mm-hmm. You were even going to let me stay with Jacob, who you knew Jacob doesn't care to stay with me. But
he likes you. He's just not used to it.
You were going to do it. You know what I mean? Because you wanted to go that bad, and then you ended up not being able to go because it was a bad day for that. And so, I've seen you have to miss something that you really, really wanted to go to that. I've seen how bad you wanted to go.
And I think the misconception is, just make him, just train him to do it. This is a processing disorder, and I'm still getting that. I'm still understanding that because I get frustrated and I'm like, that's it. I mean, we went to Glacier.
Right.
On a camping trip. And we're driving. I don't know if you've been on going to the Sun Road. And he's like total meltdown, hitting, screaming. And we're on this windy little road in the fog. I mean, it was so dangerous. And we had to go back to the campground because he was just done. And it's like, when are we ever going to get to Glacier? Although we're going next summer. But at the time we were thinking,
many times we had to
it's a long ways from Michigan pulling a camper. But it's like, at that time we thought we'll never be here again, maybe. Right. And we didn't get to see hardly anything that we wanted to see because he was just done. And people can look at that and say, well, why don't you just make him? It's just not that easy. It's not like he's choosing to be bratty.
Right.
I guess that's the misconception, that it's a choice, that he's just choosing not to do what we ask him to do. That's not what it is. It's a processing thing, and he can't communicate it. So maybe it's just that he's overwhelmed. Maybe it's just he's overstimulated. Maybe he doesn't feel good. Right. Maybe he has a headache. We don't know. Because we try to ask him if he doesn't feel good. He just says, no doctor, and freaks out. So I can't ask him, so... We are figuring out when we can push him and he will do it and when it's just not going to work. And, and then not as much anymore. It's gotten tons better in the last 6 months. There were about 10 years in there where he was pretty physically aggressive. We have holes in the walls to prove it. And he's big. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. So, I don't want that happening out in public and somebody calling the cops and somebody showing up and trying to help me when they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So sometimes it's easier to stay home than deal with it. And So I guess the bottom line is take away all those preconceived notions. Don't judge the parenting because most likely you're not an autism expert. And most importantly, say, what can I do to help? Maybe have food delivered one night when you know it's a really hard week. Like just Uber Eats somebody a pizza or watch their kids for a night, even though you aren't super comfortable. I mean, you know what I mean? Put yourself out there and, even if it doesn't go great. And don't call them and tell them it's not going great. I mean, this is how extreme the anxiety and the regimentedness of it is. We went to Detroit with our friends from Petoskey, came down. We went to a Detroit Tigers game. We get all the way there. We're parking the casino, walking in to go walk to our restaurant. We get a phone call. Jake's screaming in the background. His caregiver's here because he got home after we left. And caregiver's here and said John took his keys because Jacob is obsessed with John's keys because when he was little, and he's 24 now, John used to be a youth pastor and he'd be gone for weekends or week-long trips and just a lot of evenings. So Jake would sleep with his keys because then he thought daddy couldn't leave. And he still calls us mommy and daddy. And he's 6'5", 200 pounds. And that's great. But he loves daddy's keys and they have to go in the same spot on the counter. If you move them, he'll come running out from his room. He can hear and he moves it back exactly where it needs to be. That's the level of how intense the need to have things the way they're supposed to be. It's not controlling. It's not whatever. It's like in his mind, it has to be like that or the world is not okay. So we're in Detroit with the keys. He brought my keys. He remembered to do that. Anytime we go out, we take mommy's keys and leave dad's keys on the counter. But he bought both sets of keys. So we're in Detroit with our friends from Petoskey. Paid $100 for tickets to the Tigers game. Like, what are we going to do? My girlfriend goes, can you Uber the keys home? It's like, what, 35, 40 miles? I don't know how far it is. So finally, we're like, give him his Xanax, give him this, do this, say this. And so we're on the phone for almost an hour, the time we wanted to be out for dinner. And he did finally do it. And he calmed down, which was huge. I thought we were going to have to come home. I was really surprised we didn't have to come. But our friends said, whatever we need to do. If we need to come home, we can just eat, local. And that was such a blessing to me, if you're listening, Sandy Lee and Jolie, because you don't get that from a lot of people. I guess you pick and choose who can be close, who can really know your kids, because you want to protect their dignity. And you want people who value them all the time, even when it's awful.
Right.
Because it is awful. I saw some on Facebook, someone posted that said, I think it was you, Sammy Hall, from church, that said, what I tell you about autism and my son is this much. I don't tell you what's really happening. Because, number one, it's exhausting to talk about it. Number two, I want to protect my kid's dignity. Number three, I'm not sure who will understand. I'm not sure how safe I am.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah. It's not that I don't love my kids. And I feel like I have to always say that. I love them, but it's not that I don't love them. It's just.
Yeah, but you know what? Every parent says that about their kids. Honestly, I mean, anybody who's got a teenager.
Yeah.
I love him, but he's a little. So it's yeah. You should be able to express yourself. And I understand the whole reserving dignity by using certain words and things like that, but sometimes I think that we've kind of overdone it. And for me, I think it's important that I'm able to hold on to the term special needs. And I heard you use it, so I know that it's not something that kind of like offends you.
No.
But yeah, you don't. What terms do you like?
I don't like handicapped or retarded, of course. Right. And I don't like disabled.
I think we try to use person first, not like I have an autistic child, but I have a child who is autistic.
Right.
The child is first. I have a child who has red hair. I have a child who's autistic. Rather than I have an autistic child. It's not about the autism, it's about the kid first, person first,
Right.
who has autism. Now, do I always say that? No, when I'm just meeting people, I'm like, I have 2 autistic kids.
Right.
Sometimes. But I try to, especially when I talk with Hannah, say autism isn't who you are. It's part of you, but it doesn't define you. You are Hannah.
Right.
You are this beautiful person who's creative and has a job and strong-willed as heck.
And that's why I like the term special needs, because for me, before I knew anything about, the special needs community, that helped me understand. And that's what I would always say, well, what does special needs mean? It means every individual has special needs that they need provided for them to have a fulfilled life.
And a need.
It is a need.
Like
and it
Jacob
is a special need that they
needs
have.
structure.
And everyone has a different need, and therefore it is a special need.
And to remember that all this behavior, the hitting, the screaming, the melting down, the name calling, the kicking holes in the wall, that's communication. That's what my husband said. My husband's a therapist. The Lord knew I needed a built-in therapist. But he always says, well, actually the kid's preschool teacher is the one who told us. She said, all behavior is communication. So you have to look at it and say, what is he trying to tell us?
Right.
What is Hannah, who is, a lot of people can't even tell she has autism, but when she gets overwhelmed and it's not good. What is she trying to say? Probably I didn't have enough time to myself. I'm really tired and I need to unwind and I need people to not talk to me for a while and I need you to not ask me to do anything right now. I just need how we always say I need a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she needs an hour, but
Right.
she needs it. And she knows what she needs to do to calm herself, but she needs it.
Right.
And if we don't work that into her day when we're busy or whatever, then it's not good. And it can get ugly. And I know everybody's kids are like that, and I don't like it when, like you said that, and that I wasn't offended by that, but sometimes people say, well, that's not special needs, that's how my kid is. Like, this is on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, no, that
There's
wasn't
no,
the point.
no,
Yeah.
I know you didn't say that, but people do that. So I guess don't just say, how can I help? Or you're such a good mom. Or I'm praying for you. Or, whatever. Keep on keeping on,
Right. Can we talk about your health?
Sure.
All right. Becky?
What disease
I
don't you
honestly-
have?
Well, yeah, I honestly don't know your medical history. I just know that you go through a lot on top of everything else that you do for your family. And so let's talk about how you don't always get to address that.
No. I have a real rare form of non-Hodgkin's that is not curable. It's chronic. It won't ever go away. So I had treatment back in 2004, like hair fallout kind of chemo, 8 rounds. And since then I've had some like monoclonal antibody treatment, some infusions, like over 40 of those through the years, that kind of keep it kind of a watch and wait is what they call. So you watch it and you wait and see what happens. So I go to the oncologist every 6 months, get my labs drawn, see him, and it's been super stable, probably for a decade or more. But you just never know if today's going to be the day you're going to go to the doctor and he's going to say, ugh. I mean, because that's what happens. At some point in time, we'll become more aggressive. And then and it's so rare. Like one place I read 3 in 1 million people. So I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I read. But I know it's rare because a lot of doctors, like when I was at U of M getting an infusion, the nurses didn't even know it. They had to look it up. And those are the oncology nurses. That's how rare. So there's not a lot of treatment because not a lot of people have it. So it's not a big money maker. So there's not a lot of research. So they do have a few things now for treatment. And so, it's a faith journey. I was diagnosed when the kids were little. They were 3 and 5.
And at that time, they told me the life expectancy for this diagnosis was 5 to 8 years. That was in 2002. So I have a lot to be thankful for, and I know that. But it doesn't take it away that it's there. And that I have cancer in my body all the time. And it makes me feel like I have cancer in my body all the time.
Right.
I'm tired and, on disability. I also have rheumatoid arthritis and small vessel vasculitis, which are autoimmune diseases. And that's what I've been getting treatment for. Most recently, I have another infusion coming up in a couple weeks. Every 18 months, I have to get infusions to, knock down my immune system basically and get the disease more under control.
And you have a recovery time for that, right?
Yeah. Big recovery time. I feel like the older I get, the more the recovery. I've been doing those infusions since 2004, consistently. For a while they were more. It was like 8 infusions every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks I had them for 8 times, twice or 3 times maybe. I can't even keep track of how many, but it's and it just, the exhaustion, and then having 2 special needs kiddos, and thank God I have a wonderful husband. You're the man, babe. He does a lot. He works obviously hard, and he does a lot. Every morning, gets up and does the dishes from the night before, because now 3 or 4 o'clock,
Right?
I'm on the couch.
Feed me,
which is hard because that's when he gets home, and that's another big thing, finding good quality time. We try to really be consistent about date night, but again, you have to have a caregiver.
Right.
And so when we're going out tonight, Gonna go see Wakanda forever. But I'm like, I might fall asleep, but that's okay. I'm getting a break, and I don't think I will. But I don't even care if I fall asleep. So yeah, the health issues combined with it is a lot. So I have wonderful, wonderful friends through the years who've, since we moved here in 2004, provided meals when I needed them, and I just can't mention what a big deal that is. To have someone bring you dinner. Number one, you don't have to go to the store and get it. You don't even have to think about what you're going to have the energy to do that.
Right.
You don't have to clean up. You know what I mean? And it's just there. And then if your kids don't like it, it doesn't matter because it's all there is. That, I guess that's another beautiful thing that you could do for people. Maybe once a month, just bring somebody dinner that has a special needs kid.
Right.
So, but yes, the health issues definitely add another layer to the fatigue. And I think to the anxiety of my kids. Hannah gets it. They don't remember me not being sick because I was sick for several years. I found my lymph node. I used to be an oncology nurse. I found it when Jake was a baby. I was nursing him one time and had my hand up there. It was actually this side, and like, what in the world is that? But I couldn't get anybody to listen to me for a long time and biopsy it. That would have been in 98. And they finally biopsied it in 2002.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Because it's so slow growing. All of my labs were good, and, it's rare and difficult to diagnose. So I haven't been sick since since they've been alive. I've had health issues. So I know it makes Hannah really anxious. She gets nervous. And I know it makes my husband anxious.
Well, sure.
That he's going to be left to take care of this, because I do all the dealing with Social Security and dealing with agencies and making sure they're Medicaid and Medicare and everything's all set. And that is a full-time job.
There's a lot to that.
Oh.
So maybe for people who don't understand, explain a little bit of that.
Once they turn 18, they're on disability, but you have to apply. You have to prove they have a disability, which for Jake was easy. Because developmentally, he's probably, 5 or 6, I would say. Sweet as can be. But Hannah is high functioning, but it has some significant challenges that would make it impossible for her to work a full-time job and support herself. So you have to go in and basically talk about your worst day. Talk about all her behaviors, everything she can't do. And she cries every time, like, I don't want to talk about everything I can't do. Can you imagine talking about your worst day?
Right.
To having Mike tell people about your worst day in detail for hours. mean, that's what it's like for her. And when you make your goals with your supports coordinator, basically you're talking about the things they can't do, which is what you need to do.
And we spend so much time encouraging them, supporting them, and telling them how great they've done. And then we show up to these meetings and we're like, nope, she didn't really do that.
Yeah, she still needs help with that.
Uh-huh.
So the Social Security system is an animal all its own. I mean, one time we were there for 6 hours waiting. No food or water in there with an autistic kid. And if you leave and they call your name, you lose your place. That was an adventure. So, and then they'll send you something in the mail and say you have 10 days to get back to me or you're going to lose your benefits. It's like, what if you're on vacation?
Right.
So when we camp for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So we're on vacation. I have someone come get the mail and say, if anything's from Social Security or DHS, open it. Because I need to know what it says in case it's really, really important. Because if I miss it.
Start over.
And they need this stuff in place. So when they're ready to live not with us, when we're too old or whatever, they're going to need supports. And that's how they get that.
Right.
So they need it now, but what we're doing is getting supports in place. So when we're not here, they have what they need. We have a special needs trust for our will. We have a standby guardian. We have a trustee. Someone's going to have to manage your money. And we need to make sure they have enough money because kids with disabilities live on the poverty level.
Right.
And are in subsidized housing.
And if they don't, they lose their Social Security.
Right. If you make too much money, you lose your Social Security. So that and advocating, making sure they get what they need and making sure the people, like when Hannah started her job, I talked to her boss and explained a little about Hannah. She's a great worker, but there's some things you need to know.
Hmm.
She's got a lot of anxiety. It might come out like this. Her boss has my number. Or said, we want to give her a raise, but we don't want to mess up her Social Security. So her boss calls me. Nobody else's kids calls the mom about the kid's job if they want to give them a raise and make sure it's okay.
Right. Business
increase your-
owners, this is important. We need you guys. We need you to bring these people in and be willing to be that person. I understand you have a business to run. These people need that opportunity.
And they're the
that
best worker.
None of you got anywhere without somebody giving you an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I've read and I've seen, your person on the spectrum is going to show up because that's the schedule. I mean, it's non-option. You have to go. That's the schedule. This is what I do. That you give them a checklist, they're going to do it because they're rule followers and they follow a schedule. I've had schedules with 2-sided Velcro all over my house since Hannah was 3. And so they know how to follow a schedule. I mean, Hannah works at our local library and they said it's just a fabulous, fabulous worker. But there's things that they need to know about her. I'm going to share one example and I hope it doesn't embarrass Hannah, but she's come so far and doesn't do this anymore. But I think it's just a perfect example of how autism is that people might not realize. So she used to work evenings and they said at 8:45, we flip the lights or something. I might not be getting all the details exactly right, but basically start to close down because the library closes at 9. And then people are supposed to start packing up. Well, she was kind of walking around almost stalking the people that were sitting there they're not following the rules. It's 8:45. You need to be packing up. That's what the schedule says. I mean, we follow rules. We're black and white in our thinking. And so her boss called me and was like, we want her here. I said, thank you for making this work for Hannah. She's like, thank you for letting us have her. And thank you, Annette. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, her boss now. Chris, I couldn't think of his name. Just wonderful, wonderful people. They appreciate her and know she does a stellar job. But there's certain things that because of her autism, she just can't help. Right. She can't get nervous. She doesn't want to get in trouble because they're not out by 9 because that's her job.
She just needs you to be a little accommodating.
So what did they do? They said, we'll end her shift at 8:30. Then she doesn't have to worry about the 8:45 thing. So she has built-in job coaches. They figured that out, not me. Right. But lots of times the mom has to do that or the dad has to go in and say, let's accommodate, let's do this, let's whatever. And that's great. But think outside the box. This is a valuable worker, but we're going to need to adjust a few things to make it work for them and to help them be their most successful self.
Right.
They
did that for John at Chick-fil-A.
Mm-hmm.
He had originally had a job coach, and he felt like the job coach was just watching him, and it made him nervous and unable to perform
Right.
at his top level. And the owner was so awesome, and the management, the whole team, like they were like, that's fine. And he went without a job coach, and everybody just supported him.
Totally.
He had support all the way around, and it was.
Hannah started with the job coach. More it was just to have something to do. She started volunteering. She didn't have a job yet, and she was out of high school, and it's like, now what do we do? And that's another big issue. When you're done with school, what do you do? It's on the parents to find stuff.
Right.
I mean, with your supports coordinator, but yeah. So Rachel, her wonderful caregiver, worked with her, and they volunteered to start with. Then they said, you're doing great. Here's my phone. Oh, Marla from Yellow Dog, I'll have to call you back.
So Rachel went with her, and they said, Hannah's doing so great, she doesn't need a job coach. And so then she was just volunteering. Then they said, she's doing the work of a paid person. We don't feel right about not paying her. They offered her a position. It started out like 4 hours a week, 2 hours at a time, and that was hard for her. She'd never done that. And now she works 3 or 4 days a week. She picks up extra hours. She manages her own schedule. She does her own timesheets. She's become so independent and so successful. Plus, she has her own business that together we do, but she manages a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So to come from that to this, because someone gave her a chance. And then she believed in herself and knew she could do it. So she's confident. Like she, gets herself to work. She knows her schedule. She turns in her availability each month. She does her timesheet. She knows she needs to bring the timesheets home for us so we can report it to Social Security. She does all that. But had someone not believed in her, had they said this isn't going to work because Hannah's stalking our patrons. Wasn't really stalking, but kinda.
I'm like, for somebody who doesn't know, it might have looked like that.
Right. She kept walking around looking at them because they weren't getting up. And, to then during COVID, she was answering the phones to be able to do that. And they said she's great on the phones and great at dealing with people who are maybe upset. Why do I have to wear a mask or whatever? Mm-hmm. Just really good at that. To get to that from not understanding that people don't have to get up at 8:45. That's just because that's your schedule.
Right.
So I just feel like, that's why we love Clarkston here where we live, because I feel like it's such a supportive community for the special needs population. And we always say we can never move. Like my husband would love to move up north by our friends in Petoskey or Marquette. But we can never leave Clarkston, which we love Clarkston. But the option's not there. There is no option because there's so many supports built in for our kids. Like Jacob gets lost someday, someone he knows is going to see him. Someone who knows about autism is going to see him and know what to do. Just the support is just ridiculous. I mean, we just fell into a
way to go, Clarkston.
Great place. So I'm thankful for that.
Good.
Yeah.
What else we got, Becky? What does the world need to know?
That this is a lifelong journey. Parents of kids with special needs are exhausted. I say to my husband all the time, this is way too much parenting to have to still be doing in your mid-50s. Like, this is the stuff you do in your 30s and your 20s when you have more energy and not all these chronic health issues.
And it's okay to feel that way. That does not diminish your love for them.
And I wish everybody else could realize that. I wish I could complain. I don't feel like I can. Like to you, I can, because you get it. But, I wish to someone, there are a few people, but I'm hesitant. Like when I join a new group or something, it's like, I feel like I have to make it sound like it's easier than it is, because I don't want people to think I don't love my kids or that I'm complaining. And so I guess just err on the side of support and realize that this is a lifelong thing. Like our retirement looks different. Our retirement is, I hope we get to do some things, but we have to make sure our kids are going to have enough money when we're gone. I don't want them living on $800 a month.
Right.
Living
where on $800 a month? You can't even rent a room for that right now. And supports
in place. And I'm not complaining. It's just our reality.
Right.
We don't, will we even be able to go away for 3 or 4 weeks? I don't know. What would we do with Jacob?
And that's another piece. There are group homes, and there are wonderful group homes, and there are some that aren't as wonderful. And could we find one? Probably. I'm not ready for that. Would you send your 5-year-old to a group home for strangers to take care of him?
Right.
That's what he is developmentally. Needs help with showering and shaving. You'd let a stranger do that with your kid? So I don't need your opinion about it. I don't need you to tell me when I need to start thinking about that and that, we need to put him here, put him there. When it's right for us, we will make that choice. But it'll be a devastating choice, and it'll be devastating for him.
Right. Oh,
He wants his mommy and daddy.
Mm-hmm.
He is a little boy.
That will never change.
That will never change. He sleeps with a blankie. And he's 6'5", 200 pounds, doesn't even fit on his bed.
Right.
And he and Hannah are so close. For them to not be together would just be, they're almost like twins. She's a good advocate for him, a strong support, and they're best friends. So that's a piece too. So it just looks super different for us. And so maybe be a little sensitive when remember that me showing up for your wedding or your kid's college graduation or your baby shower, I'm really excited to be there.
Right.
But can you be sensitive to the fact that that might be a little difficult for me? And just say, I'm so glad you're here. I know this probably isn't super easy. I don't need you to feel sorry for me. I just need you to see me and appreciate where I'm at.
Right.
That my journey isn't the same. I'm in Holland. And I always wanted to be in wherever the heck the other place is,
Really?
Italy.
You learned French for that. That's the way I told the story this morning to my mom. I was telling her what
So yeah, just be supportive. Be a good human. Be kind.
Right. Well, Becky, thank you so much for bearing your soul and
Thank you for bringing it out there.
Well, you just brought it out there. I hope that it encourages other parents who are bottling that up inside to maybe find a trustworthy person to release it. Find a support group to release it.
Yeah.
But don't bottle it up. Right. Somebody will understand. And the rest of the world, come on, y'all, just understand. Show them that you understand.
And thank you to the people who do.
Yes.
Because there are amazing people out there, we ran an event the other night and the people were just so supportive, and it was just, I don't think people realize what a blessing that is. Because going in, you just wonder all the time, wondering,
Right. All right. Well, we'll see you next time on Pages of Giving.
Keep watching Patty.